Hello and welcome to this Unity Basics tutorial by Nitamani School. My name is Christina and I will be your guide through this tutorial series. In this tutorial series, you will go through the basics of Unity as well as basics of the C# programming language. As a result, we will have a complete functioning game which should look something like this. It will be a platformer game where we jump over obstacles and try to get to the goal. In this episode, you will learn how to create a project and how to navigate in Unity. Alright, let's get started by opening Unity. If this is the first time you run Unity, you will be asked to create an account and possibly to answer to a survey. After you're ready, press the New button on top right. Give the project a name of your choice. You can set the location for the project folder, but the default is OK. Also, set the template to 2D. And then press Create Project. After the editor has opened, you should see something like this. This is the default layout in Unity. It's a fully customizable, and we'll do a little bit of tweaking to make it look cleaner. Head to top right. There is a button called Layout. Press it. Select 2x3. Now, let's tweak the view a little bit. You will see the project view here. Press the little list icon on the top right and select one column layout. And also drag the game window to be an additional tab to the scene view. Now we have more screen space for the scene and game view. We should save the layout, so select Layout on top right again and select Save Layout. Give it a name and press Save. You can edit the layout as you like, but the most important ones are the scene, game, hierarchy, project, and inspector windows. Now that the layout looks good, let's examine the various windows that we have. Let's take a look at the project window. The project window shows the files and the folder structure of your project. You can right-click it and select Show in Explorer to open the folder location on your computer. You can import your own assets, like 3D models, textures, or audio clips, as long as they are inside the Assets folder somewhere. You can close the folder view. Let's open the Scenes folder. Inside we have a scene file called Sample Scene. Let's rename the scene. You can do that either by right-clicking on it and select Rename, or just by selecting it and by pressing F2. Rename it to Level 1. Next, let's go to Hierarchy. If the scene's hierarchy list isn't expanded, press the small triangle located left of the name of the scene. This list will show us all of the game objects in this scene. Currently, there is only one object, main camera. Each scene has their own independent hierarchy, so they are like small worlds that contain their own game objects. We can change between scenes in game from code. Next, let's take a look at the game view. In this view, we see what we would see in the game. We can't do anything in it, since it just shows what the cameras see. In the top middle, you have 3 buttons. These control the play mode. First button starts and ends the play mode, so you can test the game in the current state. Second button pauses and unpauses the game, and the third one advances the game by a single frame if the game is paused. Note that you lose all the changes you make to the scene when play mode is activated. Then let's look at the scene view. This is where we can look around freely and edit the current scene. We only have one game object currently, so the scene is quite empty. Let's create a new game object there. Right-click on the hierarchy window and select 3D Object, and from there, Cube. Now we can only see the cube from one side. On the top of the scene view, deactivate the little 2D button to enable the 3D view. The scene is quite dark, so let's add a light. Right-click on the hierarchy window and select Light, and from there, Directional Light. Now we can see the shape of the cube better. Let's take a look at the tools we have for editing the scene. The tools have hotkeys assigned to them, so the first tool can be selected with Q, the next one with W, the next with E, and so on. Let's take a look at the first four. The first tool is simply a pan tool that lets you pan the view around with left mouse button. Next one is the Move tool, and its hotkey is W. Now, if you have a game object selected, you will see a gizmo that lets you move the object around. The gizmo shows three axes, red being the x-axis, green the y-axis, and blue the z-axis. To move a game object along an axis, you simply drag it by the arrow. You can also move along two axes if you drag by the squares. Next, in the list we have the Rotate tool, and its hotkey is E. Similarly to the Move tool, there are three axes to rotate along. You can enable snapping by holding down Ctrl, and this also applies to Move tool. You can also rotate freely by all three axes at the same time by dragging from the gray sphere. Next we have the Scale tool, and its hotkey is R. This shows a gizmo with the three axes again. This tool allows you to scale the object by a single axis, or by every axis at the same time if dragged from the center. Next, I will show you how to navigate inside the scene view. You can look around freely if you move the mouse while pressing down the right mouse button. While you are holding the right mouse button, you can also move around by using the W, A, S, and D keys. Furthermore, Q and E move you down and up. If you lose sight of the cube, you can focus on it again by pressing the F key or by double-clicking it on the hierarchy. Focusing by F key only works if you have the game object selected. Next, let's take a look at the top right corner of the scene view. There is an axis selector that you can press to change your perspective. The cube in the middle of the selector switches between orthographic and perspective views. Orthographic view strips away all depth, which makes it as useful for 2D games or accurate placing of objects. Let's go back to normal perspective by clicking it again. There are a few more things I will show. First, make sure that the cube is selected. Next, we will duplicate it. Either press Ctrl plus D or go to Edit and from there duplicate. After duplicating, select the duplicated cube in the hierarchy and drag it over the original cube. This will make the duplicate a child of the original cube, and the original is called the parent. While you have the child selected, move it away from the parent so that we can see two cubes. Now, if we were to select the parent cube and move it, the child would move along with it. The same applies to rotation and scaling. The child doesn't affect the parent though. The position, rotation, and scale of the child are always relative to the parent. This is a handy feature that we will be using later in the project. Let's delete the child by selecting it and pressing Delete key on the keyboard, or by right-clicking on it in the hierarchy and selecting Delete. Select the original cube. The cube doesn't look like a cube anymore, so let's fix it. You could press Ctrl plus Z, or go to Edit, Undo to try and undo all the way back. But instead, we can just reset the transform. When you have a game object selected, Unity will list all of its components in the inspector window. Currently, there are 4 components. We will go into components further in the next episode, but let's take a look at the first component, which is the transform component. Transform displays the position, the rotation, and the scale of the cube. Press the small cogwheel icon on the top right of the transform and select Reset. Now the cube is at the default state. Let's save the scene by pressing Ctrl plus S, or from File, Save Scene. Great, now we know how to create a project and how to navigate inside the Unity editor. In the next episode, we will take a look at what is a game object and what are the components. See you on the next episode.